What's up, everyone? And today I'm doing a deck profile on my Cubic deck. Now, Cubics is a monster or an archetype that appeared in that Yu-Gi-Oh movie. What was it? I'm blanking on the name. Dark Side of Dimensions. That's what it was. And it's a very interesting archetype. It's an archetype that focuses around tribute summoning, kind of like Monarchs and True Dracos. Although I guess say the main monster of this deck, which is a VGM, is like essentially like a battle fair. So it's a really cool deck. And yep, let's get right into the video. First up, I'm on 3 VGM, the Cubic Seed. Now, this is, like I said earlier, essentially like a battle fader, because it cannot be destroyed by battle. And when your opponent monster attacks this, you can move this card from your monster zone to your spell and trap zone to place a cubic counter on your opponent's monster that attacked it. And if it has a cubic counter, it cannot attack or activate its effects. So it essentially completely nullifies it, which is really pretty cool. And it like I actually did a practice duel with this deck against one of my friends, and it actually worked out quite well because he'd like attack and then instantly that would make his monster unable to attack. So he literally had to like destroy it by a card effect. Also on the 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. Now, aside from like Duza and Bijim, all the cubic monsters cannot be normal summoned, and they must be special summoned by removing, retributing, or revealing a certain number of cubic monsters. This one you can by revealing 3 other cubic cards in your hand with different names. It is unaffected by other monsters' activated effects, whose original attack is 3,000 or less, so pretty good. And when this attacking card destroys a monster by battle, you can activate this effect. This card can make a second attack during the battle phase. During an phase, each player takes 3,000 damage. So, not only does it do burn damage, but it can also... It's like a beat stick in a way. It's the beat stick that can negate, or it is unaffected by your opponent's card effects. Now next, I run the 3 Duza, the Meteor Cubic Vessel. Now, if this card is normal special summon, you can send 1 cubic card from your deck to your hand, so it's a Foolish Burial. And once during either player's turn, if a monster was sent to your graveyard this turn while this card was face up on the field, you can make this card gain 200 attack for each monster with different names in your graveyard. You don't really use that effect quite as much. You mainly use it for the Foolish Burial effect to send some of your spells and traps to the grave. Now next, I run 4 one-ofs. I run the 1 Enduria, Doombolt the Cubic Emperor. This must be special summoned by sending 3 cubic monsters you control to the graveyard and cannot be special summoned by other ways. This card gains 2,400 attack, and if this card is special summoned from the hand, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. If this card in your possession is sent to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can target up to 3 cubic monsters in your graveyard special summon them. So it's really good at reviving your cubic monsters. Although you can only pretty much use it with Duza and VGM, which isn't too much of a problem. Those are pretty much the ones you would be wanting to bring back. Next, I run the 1 Blade Garudia, the Cubic Beast. This one must be special summoned by sending 2 cubic monsters you control to the graveyard. If summoned this way, it gains 200 attack. It can make a second attack during each battle phase, so much like Crimson Nova, it can do an extra attack. And when this card destroys a monster by battle, you can target up to 3 VGM in your graveyard. Send this card to the graveyard and special summon them. Then that allows you to add 1 Buster Gundel, the Cubic Behemoth. Speaking of Buster Gundel, I run the 1 Buster Gundel, the Cubic Behemoth. This one can be special summoned by sending 3 cubic monsters you control to the graveyard, and if summoned this way, it gains 3,000 attack. This card can make a second and third attack during each battle phase, so one thing you notice with this deck, it can make a lot of attack, so it's kind of like more of like an OTK kind of ish deck. Although it's very hard to get all of them out at once, unfortunately. If this card in your possession is sent to the graveyard by opponent's card effect, you target up to 3 cubic monsters in your grave, special summon them. Then you can add a cubic card from your deck to your hand. So it's kind of like a searcher, in a way. Pretty much all the cubics have that effect too, where they can, like, when they're sent to the grave, revive some cubic monsters. I run the 1 Guile, the Cubic King. This one is much easier to get out. It must be special by sending 1 cubic monster you control to the graveyard, and if it does, gains 800 attack. If this card is special summoned from the hand, inflict 800 damage to your opponent, and at the end of the damage step of this card battle, you can target up to 2 VGM Cubic Seed in your graveyard, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon them. Then you can add 1 Vulcan Dragny, although I do not run the Vulcan. I run the 3 Summoner Monk. I mainly run this to kind of like help me get out Duza, considering you send a spell trap, or not, you can send a spell to special summon 1 level 4 from your deck. So you can use it to like send Cubic Wave, Dharma Karma, mostly Wave, because you can get effects when it's in the grave, like some of the other spells and traps. Moving on to the spells. I run the 3 Cubic Wave. Now, Cubic Wave, you can target a face-up cubic monster you control, and 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, the attack of that monster you control becomes double, and if it does, the attack of their opponent's monster becomes half. So essentially, you double your attack and half your opponent's. And once in the grave, you can banish this You banish this card and any number of cubic monsters from your graveyard, then target face-up monsters your opponent controls equal to the number of banished cubic monsters, place a cubic counter on them. Monsters with a cubic counter cannot attack and also negate their effects. So that's pretty good. Up next, I run the 2 cubic Dharma. I think it's Dharma. First, take no battle damage from attacks involving cubic monsters. You can only use each of the following effects of cubic Dharma once per turn. The first one, you can send a cubic monster from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, draw 1 card. So it's a little bit of draw power, and you can banish this card from your graveyard, target a cubic monster in your graveyard at your hand. So it's both draw power and recycling. I run 2 cubic Karma. When this card is activated, you can target a cubic monster you control except VGem. Send any number of VGem from a hand or deck to the graveyard. That monster gains 800 attack, even if this card leaves the field. And during your opponent's turn, if VGem the cubic seed is special summoned by the effect of a cubic monster, send this card to the graveyard. And if you do, have your opponent's life points. Wow. Yeah, I actually didn't read that effect till now. Yeah, in practice, I didn't really open Karma too often. You can banish this card from your graveyard and add a cubic monster from your deck to your hand, so it can also search, but the really cool effect is I can literally have your opponent's life points. That's pretty good, but it's also harder to use. I run the 3 Pot of Extravagance because, aside from the fusions, you don't really use your extra deck at all. Because in order to use your extra deck, you have to have monsters on the field, and considering most of them are restricted to can only be special summoned by like revealing or tributing cubic monsters, it's much harder to use your extra deck. So I just want Pot of Extravagance because I don't really even need my extra deck. Honestly, you don't even need to go into the fusion either, but it is a very powerful fusion. I run the 3 Monster Gate. Basically, when you activate this, you just go until either you get Duza, VGem, or Summoner Monk, because those are the only monsters that can be normal summoned. Also run the 1 for 1 to help get out the VGem. I run the 1 Reasoning to help kind of like in the same reason as the Monster Gate. Moving on to the traps, I run the 3 cubic Ascension. One of the deck builds I was looking at, they only ran 1, which was kind of confusing to me because I feel like cubic Ascension is one of the best cards in this deck. When your opponent monster declares an attack, special summon 1 VGem from your deck, and if you do, change the attack target to it and perform damage calculation. So it's really good for getting your VGem out, and if your life points is at least 2,000 higher than yours, or if your opponent's life points is at least 2,000 higher than yours, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 VGem, the cubic seed from your hand, deck, or grave. Then, if only your opponent controlled a monster when you activate this effect, you can also special summon up to 2 additional VGem, the cubic seed, which is pretty powerful, considering VGem is like your main kind of like starter monster disruption thing. Also run a 3 Unification of the Cubic Lords. This is a kind of like your polymerization. Fusion summon 1 cubic fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as materials. Although if a face-up cubic monster is destroyed by battle or card effect and leaves the field, if a monster is destroyed by battle or leaves the field, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon 1 level 4 lower cubic monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, which is pretty cool. Also run the 3 Trap Trick to help search these 2 out. I mainly use it for the cubic Ascension. Moving on to the extra deck. I run 3 Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubic Lord. This one requires 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, which is not the easiest thing to summon. However, it cannot be targeted, destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and when this card declares an attack, have your opponent's life points. And when this card destroys a monster by battle, you can activate this effect. You can make this card can make a second attack during the battle phase, and if you take effect damage, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the damage you took. Yeah, this deck can OTK. This is probably one of the most powerful fusions I've seen, although it is hard to get out. So that's the one downside to it. Now for the rest of the extra deck, just put in whatever you want. Like, you're pretty much not even going to go into them. Like, you can put an IP Master Random package, Broil Sword, Access Code, Appaloosa, some XYZs or Synchros. It doesn't really matter because the chances of you actually using them are very low. Because most of the monsters that you're going to be using reside in the main deck, like VGem and Crimson Nova. So that's going to be for my Cubic deck profile. What do you think? Do you think Cubic's a pretty fun deck? Do you think the movie's pretty good? Do you do you think this is how a gold rare should be? Because honestly, when I first saw this, I thought it was pretty cool. Although still not as cool as my favorite rarity, Platinum Rare. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye!